why so serious? Okay, that was lame. I couldn't help it to always say this to when I refer to the movie Smile, the latest horror movie that I have seen. Wait a minute, horror movie. In September. In September I saw Barbarian. And then I saw Pearl. Then I saw now Smile. Oh yeah, and last week there was Don't Worry Darling, but I wasn't so interested enough to see it, but I did see some of the reviews, of course, and I don't know why the movie kind of is. I think it was because the category was drama and wasn't exactly a thriller horror, but there's some horror elements out of it. But either way, we have kind of like four horror movies that it should have been. We should have taken in consideration that horror movies belong in September. Oh wait a minute! Now that I think about it, Netflix also brought out the Rob Zombie's Monsters. What is going on? It's almost like the horror month is in September more than in October. And considering that we had January, the one that they dumped horror movies. Okay, either way, I was actually really, really eager to watch Smile because of the marketing and with the trailers, I don't think it helped much because unlike Pearl or Barbarian, the trailer felt a little more like the typical horror marketing ploy in which, unfortunately, I think it gives out one of the best scares spoiled. I will tell you what. I probably will say which one it is, but I think you already got the idea. And unfortunately, if there's something that I want to say is that the problem with those mainstream horror movies is that sometimes when they advertise, they show off some of the best parts, and this kind of lessens the scare factor. And honestly, it could be a little bit more effective if you didn't show it, because I went to see the movie in the movie theaters in an early screening, and I had to go to another town because this is where one of my favorite movie theaters is showing, and they have the courtesy that during a specific day they cheapen the prices of admission to $7, and that is kind of like a good deal. So I went there, and because I was anticipating Smile, and what I never expected for a long time is that I see a packed house. The movie theater was full, which this is something that I absolutely love if that happens in horror movies. It's because when you go there, I mostly like to see the audience reaction, and if the movie is really good, I miss these times in which they bring out kind of like the most cowardly of people, and they just get a kind of like a cheap scare, no matter how cheap the scare is or something like that. I'm not seeing scenes like that anymore, and this kind of makes me think that I really enjoy even the kind of like the cheesy. These bad, even if the movie is bad, but we got kind of like these paranormal activity reactions. That's something that I really miss. But anyway, I just came out with Smile, and the biggest impression that I got is that this movie actually brings out a lot of the checklist of all the things that I was expecting from a movie. And it is, but does that mean that is a bad movie? Well, luckily it's not. Sorry about the sirens. But anyway, it's not a bad movie. I actually came out really liking the movie, and it's a little bit, how can I say, the movie is a little bit more well done than what you might expect. as you probably might be disappointed if you kind of go there and see that, go like, seen that, done that. They goes into familiar territory that you see in horror movies, but honestly, this is more on you. If you, it's more on you if you kind of just watch kind of like a lot of those horror movies. What is going on outside? It's the cars. Yeah, sorry about that. It's not easy when you live in an apartment and things are going on a little bit hectic. But anyway, talking about Smile, I think it was a kind of like an easy sit for me. Although still, the movie deserves some credit because there's some things that is done really well. And while I wasn't technically as scared or disturbed like I did with Barbarian or Pearl, I will say that it comes close to being kind of like the very very acceptable horror movies. So. With an interesting premise, I'll say. This is what it actually brought me into it. It interests me the story enough, to be sold and go for it. Maybe the marketing did something for me, and I just got curious for it. So maybe this is a well done thing. Although I prefer when they do it in the style of Barbarian, in which you kind of don't know what to expect, or sometimes you get misconcepted perception of it. So I still think Barbarian did a better job in the market on this vague marketing than Smile did. But anyway, here I am. I'm gonna talk about the movie and well, here goes. What the movie is about. The movie centers around this woman named Rose. She's played by let me see the name of the artist here. Chelsea Bacon. She is a mental therapist in a hospital, and she takes care of all these people with mental disabilities or mental illness here and there, until one day she gets a patient in which she's totally kind of like her face scratched here and there. She's always very jittery, scared, and she's like, I see people. I see something. Something is chasing me. It's like it disguises like people that but but the difference is that it's always smiling at you. It's not a friendly smile. It's just a creepy smile, and I think it's gonna get me for it. It's gonna get me. It's gonna get me. It's gonna get me. And so basically, something is wrong with that patient until she gives kind of like this episode of big scream saying that it's there. And then later, our protagonist Rose, she was trying to call for help. She finds out that the woman is basically, she gives out this really really creepy smile, and then out of nowhere she picks up some shattered ceramic from a broken vase, and then she slices her neck, and she kills herself, still maintaining that creepy smile, almost like if she's inhaled the Joker gas, but without the makeup. And from that episode, our Rose then later she begins to have all these visions of people that she know always bringing kind of like this smile, and from this point on, it's her downhill into the rabbit hole of trauma, of possible hallucinations, seeing kind of like her people that she knows always kind of bringing out kind of like this big horror, kind of like this unfriendly smile out of nowhere. So she becomes trapped into what is real, what is not, is based, what is going on? Is it on her head? Is this actually some kind of demonic thing that is following her and is trying to drive her crazy to the point of death? And that's and and I will get more to that, by the way, because this is some interesting these are some interesting things that I do want to say. Although I will give it my best to not spoil too much, but this is not exactly kind of like a big promise because I really want to talk much about this movie. So first of all, let me go with the acting, which is very interesting. That of all the 3 horror movies that I have seen this month, we did have really solid acting, which a female, an actress, really holding up the movie. The one for Barbarian, she holds up well, really well. We also have the one who played Pearl, and she was really good. Mia Goth, yeah, I remember Mia Goth. And now Sosie Bacon also carries out this movie. Her acting was also excellent. Although if I have to be a little bit frank, I think that Mia Goth was actually the best of all those 3 actresses. But I'm not saying that to diminish Sosie Bacon and her acting, because she did really well portraying the character Rose. And we also have kind of like this backstory in which she's basically kind of like traumatized because in the beginning of the movie it showcases that she basically witnessed her mother kill herself by overdosing in medicine, I'll say. I'll just kind of leave it a little bit like that, by the way. But yeah, this is kind of like the backstory of this character, and then you kind of feel bad for this character when she was basically trying out to help out this woman who basically then kills herself because of something following her, and then she kills herself, and then she kind of becomes, it's almost like she kind of adopted this whole shabacle. In a way, this kind of reminds me of Drag Me to Hell, in which kind of like a pretty innocent person, just basically just doing its own job, and then out of nowhere, because of a cruel twist of fate, they get kind of like the blunt of the knife here and there. Sorry about that. What else I can say? Let me talk about the other actors, I'll say. We got Jesse T. Usher playing Trevor, who plays out kind of like Rosa's fiance. There's also the sister. There's also the sister who she also goes with her husband. They have kind of like the restrained relationship here and there. It's almost like a relationship that is kind of friendly, but it's kind of a little bit on the tip of the iceberg, I'll say. We got Kyle Penn as kind of like the head doctor from the mental institute. He's mostly there just to say that, hey, you're doing this, you're doing that, here and there. And another character that is prominent in this movie is Kyle Gallner as this guy named Joel. He's basically a cop, I'll say. Although I thought that there was gonna be kind of like 2 cops, because in after the suicide scene, then we see kind of like this good cop, bad cops thing, and pretty much he was kind of like the good cop, but basically he kind of becomes a little bit kind of like one of the few supporting characters that actually is gonna support our character, because, well, sometimes you gotta drag out someone into the insanity, which I'll get to that later. And there's also kind of like this another doctor who helps out our protagonist, but she is kind of like here and there. No, correct that. She tries to help our character. but she's kind of like it's kind of like in the middle of trying to believe her or not. I'll get into details later. Oh yeah, and there's also Mustache the cat. And because it's a horror movie, they will go like, okay, let's go on the checklist. This kitty cat is gonna die because almost no animal is safe on horror movies. And I might be spoiling, but if you've seen movies like that, yep, it goes up. And honestly, you know that when cats die on horror movies, this is where it gets me a lot. It gets me a lot worse than dogs because I am a little bit more sensitive when cat dies. I grew up with cats and I still love cats. I think they're really cute, and when they die in horror movies, it's almost like it's almost like you know the term break the cutie. This is so hard to watch, I'll say. This is why some movies, like for example, even Drag Me to Hell, is kind of hard for me to rewatch. So I'll leave the continuing on. The cinematography, I will say that is still in the standard of those American horror movies. I'll say there's some camera work there, although there is kind of like a few instances in which they wanted to play around, in which the camera, the perspective of the camera is sometimes a little bit tilted in one moment, almost like it wanted to turn into Battlestar Galactica. And there are also some kind of like these shots in which you see kind of like if someone turned the camera upside down. I don't. But it mostly used kind of like for some kind of ambience. And speaking of horrors, I'll say there are some legitimate good scares in the atmosphere. I mean, first of all, you can't let's talk with the music, and I gotta say that also the sound works well. Although there are some times that is a little bit cheapy. There are a few jump scares here and there, and well, I could say that luckily it's not annoying or some of them feel earned. I do have to say that there is one that actually kind of annoyed me, in which that one. Well, I'm not gonna specify what happens. I will describe it that this one is literally someone yelling at your ear, "Hey!" Something like that. Yeah, they literally yelled at your ear in one of those, and that one I was kind of expecting that jump scare, but I never expected that it was gonna be like that, and I was like, really, movie? And also, let's not forget, and unfortunately, of course, I would have been much scared if for the big scare that involved kind of like a head dangling. But this one they show it on how can I say, in the trailers, and unfortunately, I wish they could have kept that hidden in a mystery, because honestly, I know that you wanted to market and say that this is a good scare, but sometimes I implore to horror movies that please leave the best scares or the ones that you feel very proud of hidden, or else it's not gonna have the kind of like the same impact when you go to see it. It might be effective probably to the ones that didn't see the trailer, but because I did get kind of like a few jitters from probably some people who didn't know what they were expecting from that. But either way, I did mention a little bit about the soundtrack, that it gets unsettling, and I think, but as much as I did complain about it, thankfully it's not not exactly, how can I say, but annoying or something or like that. It doesn't do it all the time. It shows its restraint. There's sometimes that it comes something like really really scary, and they don't have an orchestra string or something like that. No, they don't do that. They just play out as well as it is. And let me tell you that probably it might be a little bit effective on my movie theater, because the movie theater sound system was actually really good, and that kind of I think that kind of enhances the experience. As for yeah, and I do have to say that there is kind of like something in during the climax. There are some kind of like demon slash monster effects during the climax. A lot of, how can I say, gotcha moments almost during the climax, which kind of makes the experience feel better. I'll say. I think that I like the movie better during the kind of like the second half of the second act and the third act, and this is when things go really really crazy and kind of makes you feel, what the hell is going on? It begins to play with your expectations, and I appreciate that. I appreciated what it did. So this leads me to talk to you a little bit about the theme, not exactly kind of like the theme, but more about the what is going on, because this is where I think it kind of enriches a little bit the story. It doesn't tell you all. It doesn't tell you everything, but it lets you kind of piece out together. And from what I get, is kind of a little bit on the territory of It Follows, that or this Blumhouse Truth or Dare, in which you get you get kind of like this explanation of something that has happened, and it's almost like it's something inevitable, and the only way to undo it is that you have to either delay it or do something worse. In this case, the curse, it involves people that they get possessed by this mysterious being, in which the movie doesn't even tell you where it comes from. It tells that it happened to like 20 people, and it keeps on kind of like a string of things, in which everybody they begin to see all these people having this smile, but sometimes it's not exactly them. It's just kind of like the entity just apparently taking the form of someone that you know, and then you just kind of give out that smile. And I know that the movie it always kind of bothers you in these kind of movies, in which it kind of bothers you when this thing is gonna strike. Why is taking its time? How can I say? When it's gonna strike? Why it doesn't do it now? Why doesn't it do it? But at least the movie's a little bit vague on explaining by saying that this is a creature that feeds on trauma. It sucks on your trauma, and it likes to see you suffer until it had enough, and saying that, okay, it's time for you to die. Just like the crazy guy who goes like, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. And the way it does it is that it like we see in the beginning, it kind of takes over the victim, and it slices it kills them. It makes them commit suicide here and there. And apparently this thing happening countless of times, but there is indeed one solution, and that solution is not pretty, because they say that there's one guy who actually escaped from it, but again, it's not easy. And you know what? I will keep it. I'll keep it at least this moment, because probably I might be saying so much, but on, but trust me that it's not exactly a pretty solution to get rid of that entity. But it is something that apparently it goes on and on. And considering that it's about trauma and suicide, it kind of brings out a little bit of the theme that that is that probably it has to do with how can I say, what people that they're hiding their own feelings and they're going their on their lives, but unfortunately, they're something kills them, and basically something kills them inside. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Something kills them inside, and honestly, this movie feels like, okay, we always put on our happy faces, but in reality, we just can't. We're just killing ourselves with a big smile or something like that. This is something that. This is from what I heard from someone. I think I saw a review, and they kind of talked with the director and say that, well, the smiles are usually used as a mask and all these things. And honestly, when I think about it, probably this movie could have worked a little bit better about suicides if it's talking about the suicidal problems of Japan. Okay, maybe I jumped the gun on being stereotypical, on negative stereotypical. I'm sorry, just in case. But still, even when I got out of the movie, I was just thinking about, is this kind of like an allegory to people who have to deal with their traumas, but they can't handle it until they say that, okay, I'm gonna commit suicide in order to feel better with a smile on their face. And that's pretty much I have to say about this movie. Honestly, I actually really glad that I saw the movie. I was expecting a little. Although I didn't expect it to be kind of like a little bit more, in the artsy side, like Barbarian or Pearl. Now that I think about it, now I see a little bit the difference. Is that Barbarian and Pearl, they got a little bit on the artsy side. I think that how can I say? This one is a little bit more mainstream. So this is why it felt like the pacing felt like kind of like having the checklist, and when you see one of them, you kind of see them all. Although I don't mind, especially when it's kind of like horror movies. Sometimes I actually expect them to be dumber, because when you see something dumber like wish upon, you're gonna get kind of like kind of like this good fun laugh at it. And I was expecting to this one to be dumber, but unfortunately, I didn't have that. I just came out just satisfied. I'll say just satisfied. I give it kind of like this mild recommendation. So yeah, that's technically all I have to say about Smile. In which Spencer, why are you here? You're supposed to. Oh.